It's a good day. We're having our lesson 2, and then our lesson 2 is big data and Internet of Things. Just a quick recap of what we did last week on Thursday. We were doing institutional process reengineering, and this is basically about how we can re-engineer our institutions. Like now, the current COVID-19, where everything has been locked down. So I think it was an interesting topic. And today we are going to have lesson 2, which is big data and Internet of Things. Just to start with, what I want to ask you, what is big data? I'm sure majority of you have used your mobile phones, you have been using your laptops, you have used the internet. So basically, when we are talking about big data, we are talking about data which exceeds the capacity of conventional computer systems. It includes data sets which are big in size, and it's actually the next big thing in IT world. So that is going to be our topic today, and the presenter is Kioko Eskitolo, Emma Consultants. So I think I'm ready to go. So big data is data that exceeds the processing capacity of conventional computer systems. And I've just said that it is actually now the next big thing in IT world. Organizations which embraced big data are like Google, eBay, LinkedIn, Facebook. It is used in organizations when you want to achieve what we refer to as the RRI, Rapid Resource Initiative. So in situations like what we have now, if you want to have your organization having a complete turnaround, you need to invest in big data.
Okay.
Now moving to the second slide. Just a minute, there is something not happening. As my slides come on, maybe I can just continue. You cannot talk about big data without talking about datafication. Datafication is simply how you can manipulate data. And in datafication, we talk about 4 V's. That is volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. So you will not talk about big data without talking about those 4 major issues in which are used in big data. Something is happening with my slides. You bear with me a bit. I don't know what is happening. Sorry for that hitch. There are some things that are so big that they have implications for everyone. Whether we want it or not, big data cannot be discussed without datafication. So big data is one of those things, and it's completely transforming the world and the way we work. So I've just mentioned about the datafication, and we talk about those 4 V's, where we talk about volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. So basically, when we are talking about volume, we are talking about the quantity of data. When we talk about velocity, we are talking about the speed. When we are talking about variety, we are talking about data types, and veracity is about the messiness or the complexity of the data. So in volume, these days we talk about zettabytes or Bronto bytes. These are huge data types or amount of data. And in big data will enable you to deal with big volumes of data. And then you can also talk about distributed systems. Distributed systems, like now, I have a number of people who are distributed all over in Malindi, in Kakamega, in Nairobi. That's a distributed system. So when we talk about volume in big data, we are talking about that kind of data which is so big, which can be manipulated. Velocity is about the speed. You will not talk about big data without talking about the speed in which you are going to, again, handle your data. Variety, there before, we were talking about structured data. And structured data is data which is in form of databases, in spreadsheets, and the like. But these days, we have data which is unstructured. Unstructured data which is in form of text, images, video, voice, and that is what we are using or we are consuming a lot. Through big data, we are able to analyze that kind of data, which is unstructured. Veracity, these ones talk about the complexity. Data, complex of data. So in this case, we are able, again, to handle data which is in a lot of complex situations, such that we have talked of hashtags, we have talked of abbreviations and other things like typos, colloquial speech, and etc. So that content of data which is in that format, we are able to manipulate it. And that is when we talk about veracity. Other types of data is the activity, conversation, data which is in form of photos, videos, sensors, etc. So I'll just skip these slides a bit, but since it is something which you already know, but I can talk about sensor data. Like now in Nairobi, there is what was installed by Safaricom or by the government. When you pass using your vehicle someplace, you are able to, the vehicle is able to sense using the global positioning sensor, and it is able to capture your data. So that is still part of big data. How to turn big data into value? The datafication of the world gives us an unprecedented amount of data in terms of volume, velocity, variety, and the veracity. So the latest technologies, such as cloud computing and distributed systems, together with other softwares, will enable us to analyze and also leverage on different types of data. So basically, that slide is just talking about the activities and how the 4 V's can turn that data into something which can be understood or which can be of value. Applications of big data, how big data is actually being used. I have 7 examples which are placed in my PowerPoint slides. If you want to understand your customers better, then you use big data. You will be able to analyze, you'll be able to create predictive models. You are able to work on that data. Like I'll give a very good example, Safaricom. Safaricom uses this to understand their customers. They use big data. Every now and then, when we are calling them at their call center, they capture our data and they are able to understand the customer needs. Big data will enable you to understand and optimize business processes. In that case, again, you are able to generate and predict models, gathering data from social media, web, using the web, and other form of data. So you'll be able to optimize your business processes. Big data is also can be used in improving our health. Basically, like now we are talking about the COVID-19. And in order for leading researchers to get the solution to the problem we have, what they are going to use big data. Or that is what they are using to enable them come up with the cures and be able to understand the disease pattern. So big data is something which is very powerful, and it is the future in the world of IT. In terms of how big data can be used to improve the security by the law enforcement officers, these are the police and the like, they are able to foil terrorist plots when they are planning. They are able to detect cyber attacks, etc. Or in other words, they can predict criminal activities using big data. Another example is like in the sports, where we talk about the elite sports who have embraced big data. They are able to analyze, and it is something which is being used in sports a lot, like the English Premier League, where everybody is interested. There are people who even bet in that kind of league. So in order for them to get proper analysis of the sports, then they use big data. Another example is we are able to optimize our cities through like when it comes to the traffic problem, congestion, they can use big data to detect which area has a problem. So this is a very powerful topic. Again, you can use big data for the e-learning materials, especially those who are in the learning institutions. Now we are talking about the front row institutions using e-learning to be able to teach. The reason why we have this kind of interactive communication is because we are somehow using now big data. So Zoom, which is the platform we are using now, and maybe others, can be used to deliver the subject, and it is going to be delivered interactively. That is part of big data. Other applications, I would say they are endless in terms of how you can use big data. Virtually every sector in our economy or globally uses big data. That's why we are talking about the data economy. Data economy uses big data. So any business that wants seriously to have a clear visibility and have a clear implication in whatever they do, they must invest in big data. Importance of big data, it brings about dramatic cost reduction in our organizations. There is high performance. It also improved service delivery. You are able to use and introduce new services using big data. I'll continue giving examples of Safaricom. That's why it is able to be ahead of the other service providers in this industry, because it uses big data as one of their tools to able to do and deliver. You are able to predict the future using big data. So you can see there are still also some challenges. Like before we started the lesson, there were a bit of itches here and there, but somehow we have still managed to sort them out. There are numerous challenges of big data. And even before I go through that, there is what we call the data deluge, which I also mentioned in lesson 1. We are consuming a lot of data, making us have a kind of an overflow. So when we are dealing with a lot of data or data growth, there is that tendency of having an overflow of that data. So that's one challenge. Another one is generating actionable insights, able to being in a position to be able to look at some of the complex data and get clear insights. Recruitment and retaining big data talents, data validation, securing that data. You know, when data is all over, there is also a problem. We also have unfinished projects. We can have data quality. We can also have scalability, growth, and the evolving times, and the cost management. And last is the organizational resistance. There are those people who are still resisting. We still talk about IT, but now moving to big data. You cannot talk about big data without talking about Internet of Things. This is another new term in IT world. And Internet of Things, this is where you have a giant network of connected things, quote unquote, including also the people. So that complex connection of computers, everything, plus now the people, it's what we call the Internet of Things. So you cannot talk about big data without talking about Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is an embedded computing device that transmits and receives information over a network. In Internet of Things, we talk about 3 C's. Those 3 C's, this is, you can connect, you can compute, and you can communicate. So when you talk about those 3 C's, you are talking about the Internet of Things. And when you have your mobile phone, when you have your laptop, when you are now connecting using this kind of a platform, then that is part of Internet of Things. A few applications of Internet of Things. We have the building sector or the home automation, manufacturing, medical and healthcare systems, media, environmental monitoring, infrastructure management, energy management, transportation, and also better quality. Basically, like now, if our government wanted to take it right, like in our Agenda 4, then they would have invested before they launched the Agenda 4. They would have launched, they would have involved the Internet of Things and the big data. First, to analyze the sectors before they launch the projects. So Internet of Things and big data is what is going to enable us be able to plan and do most of our things on a daily basis. So Internet of Things, I've added data there, is actually the Internet of everything. where you connect everything, the things which we do on daily basis. We have smart TVs, we have smart fringes, smart alarms, just name it, traffic sensors, which are able to control our daily work. So we use the Internet of Things. Big data and Internet of Things, it provides a platform that creates opportunities for people to connect the IT devices and control them with big data technology. So in order for us to have efficiency and performance, and also see the benefits of IT, then we need to have both big data and Internet of Things connected together. So we will say that this is one of the most important topics in the 21st century. So in my conclusion, big data and Internet of Things, they have created an ecosystem that links many systems to give smart performances in every task what we do. So we cannot talk about big data without talking about Internet of Things. So both, they are kind of interlinked, they are interrelated. And as I said in our first slide, it's actually the future in IT. So all organizations globally must integrate both big data and Internet of Things for their future growth. To end my lesson, I will say, tell me and I will forget. Teach me and I will remember. That is what we are doing. Involve me and I will learn. I've also involved you so that we can learn together. So this is just a way of enabling us communicate, enabling us learn. I'm sure we have learned one or two things in the big data and the Internet of Things, and also try to open up more in terms of how we can use the two terms in our future dealings and what we do in our organizations. So I would urge you to think about big data, to think about Internet of Things, and how it can transform our institutions, or how it can transform our places of work. I think I'm going to end there. We had some bit of itches when we started. I said some of these platforms, sometimes we may have a slight itch. However, our goal has been achieved by communicating. One of the things which I want us to use this platform is that we are able to use a prepared lesson in either PowerPoint, and we can bring it on board and we are able to deliver it to our students or to our participants in wherever they are. On board, I've seen Emmanuel Kitsao, who is in Malindi. I've seen Mbuthia, who is in Nairobi. I've seen Brian Kioko, who is also in Nairobi. I've seen Dr. Diku, who is in Kakamega. I've seen also Professor Mola, who is in the other parts of Ukambani. So I think I'm trying to bring this on board so that we are able to know that we have platforms which we can use to communicate. We have platforms which we can use to teach, so that we don't continue locking ourselves in the houses, especially those who are running institutions. This is a platform which we are going to use, and I'm sure we'll be able to learn more. So we still be having weekly lessons. So we are doing lesson 2 today. next week we'll still be having our lesson 3. I talked to Professor Kioli, who was supposed to prepare something. He has a sick mother, so possibly you'll be able to do that next week. So thank you very much for attending my lesson this morning. We'll be able to interact more immediately we are through with our lesson. Asanteni sana, and pole for those itches which we had when we started the lesson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye, Mr. Kyoko. Thank
Yes, I can say, okay, Mr. Mbudia, thank you very much for attending my lesson.
Yes, asante sana. We are learning a lot from you. God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Emmanuel Kesao, can I hear you? Emmanuel.
Good morning.
Isaac Combo.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, we can just end. We were recording the lesson, so I will send it over to our WhatsApp. There were sometimes internet can have some problem. There were some, I don't know, there were some issues here and there, but we are streamlining them. So thank you for attending the lesson. I think we'll end it at, I can see Professor Mola is also on board. Prof, can you hear me? Prof? Well, it's okay. We can end at the end the lesson. I'll send over the recorded lesson. Asante sana. Right?
Hey,
Bye.
that was good. Yeah. You can learn at home.